Sister pressed a hot iron on me in a heated fight. My mom declared, "That's what trash earns for existing." I was 13 when my sister Isabella pressed a hot flat iron against my arm. It happened in our cramped laundry room in our Columbus, Ohio suburb, a quiet street lined with ranch-style houses and neatly trimmed lawns. I screamed so loud I thought the windows would shatter. The neighbors, probably sipping coffee on their porches, called the police. My mother, Patricia, met them at the door, her voice calm as she said, "I was just upset over a curfew fight." They nodded, used to her charm from church bake sales, and left. I stayed there, clutching my arm, the scar now a jagged line like a creek bed under my skin. The pain was sharp, like a knife cutting through me, and I can still smell my skin burning, like meat left too long on a grill. I wanted to cry, but I was too scared, too angry, too confused. Why wasn't anyone rushing to help? Instead, Patricia yelled from the kitchen, where she was sorting coupons for the grocery run. "Wipe up that mess before your dad gets home and stop crying like some stray dog." Isabella stood there, her green eyes cold, maybe pleased with herself. She always wanted to be the only one who mattered, the one Mom bragged about at PTA meetings. Please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm Ava, 28 now, living in Chicago. But back then, I was just the younger sister in a house that felt like a stage for Isabella's spotlight. She was the homecoming queen, with emerald eyes and a laugh that could charm anyone, but at home she was sharp, like she needed to keep me small to feel big. Mom gave her $50 a week for cheerleading outfits and makeup, while I got 10 for pencils and notebooks. I saved every penny in a tin under my bed, dreaming of a day I could leave. Patricia loved showing off Isabella's trophies at church, maybe to prove she was a good mom. Dad, Robert, just nodded along, his silence heavier than words. Growing up in that Columbus house, with its beige siding and creaky wooden stairs, felt like living in Isabella's shadow. She was the star, always twirling her blonde hair when she talked, like she was auditioning for something. I was the one who didn't fit, the one who made everything my fault, they said. Every time Isabella shoved me into a wall or slapped me for looking at her wrong, Mom would say I provoked her. I'd sit in my room afterward, heart pounding with shame, but also a stubborn flicker of anger, telling myself I wasn't the problem. It was hard to believe that when Patricia's voice echoed in my head, "You're too sensitive, Ava." I remember when Isabella got caught joyriding in a friend's car at 16, tearing through the back roads near Dublin, Ohio, where kids raced on summer nights. The police brought her home, and Patricia paid $500 for bail, money from her savings for a new dishwasher, which she reminded me of for months. She said I should have stopped Isabella as if I could control her. I was 14, bussing tables at a diner on High Street to earn my own cash, and they made me pay $200 for the clothes she'd shoplifted, saying it was my fault for not being a better sister. That was about 10 weekends of tips, gone. Patricia lit a cigarette at our Formica kitchen table, her coupon binder open, and said, "You talk back too much, Ava." She was always clipping coupons for Kroger runs, desperate to look like the perfect mom to our church friends. Dad, Robert, just shook his head, like I'd failed some test. He'd sit in his recliner, watching Buckeyes games, never saying much, maybe because he didn't want to upset Patricia's image. Isabella would smirk, knowing she'd won again, maybe because she was scared of losing Mom's attention. Please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Those years piled up like heavy bricks, each hit, each lie, each time I was told I was wrong. I'd lie awake in my twin bed staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling, feeling both invisible and too visible, like I was always in the way. But I kept saving my diner money, hiding it in my tin, because I knew I'd need it to get out someday. Nothing hit me harder than the night Isabella branded me with that iron. I was 28, back in our Columbus house for a weekend because my Chicago apartment was getting pest control. Rent there was $1,800 a month for a one-bedroom in Logan Square, and I couldn't swing a motel at $150 a night. I'd been saving every cent from my data entry job, keeping a $500 emergency fund like those financial blogs say you should. Coming back to that house, with its faded yellow curtains and linoleum floors, felt like walking into a trap. I hadn't been back since I was 20, when Isabella slammed my face into the bathroom sink over a bottle of her conditioner. Patricia called my blood dramatic, and Robert asked if I'd stain the tiles. This time, I kept my head down, packed just a duffel bag, and said thank you through clenched teeth to avoid trouble. It was fine until the second night. I was ironing my work blouse in the basement laundry room, a damp space with a flickering bulb and stacks of Patricia's coupon binders. Isabella stormed in, smelling of craft beers, probably a six-pack from the corner store, about $10 in Columbus. Her nail polish was chipped, like she'd been picking at it, and her eyes were wild, like I'd invaded her territory. "Who said you could use my iron?" She snapped. "It's Mom's," I said, trying to stay calm. Her smile was sharp, like she was guarding something. "No, it's mine, like everything in this house." "I'm almost done," I said, my hands shaking. "You're still that jealous little leech, pretending you belong." I focused on the steam hissing from the iron, my heart thumping so loud I thought she'd hear it. "Back off, Isabella!" "Wrong move," she hissed. In one quick jerk, she yanked the cord and slammed the hot iron into my shoulder. I screamed, the pain like fire eating through me, the smell of my skin burning, choking my throat. I dropped to my knees, the iron clanging on the concrete floor. Isabella stood over me, her face smug, maybe relieved, like she'd finally put me in my place. Patricia's footsteps thundered down the stairs, her coffee mug still in hand, the one with "Best Mom" written in pink cursive. "What in God's name?" she barked. "She came at me," Isabella said, her voice smooth, rehearsed. "No way," I choked, clutching my blistering shoulder. Patricia looked at Isabella, then me, her lips twisting. "That's what trash earns for existing. You had it coming worse." I couldn't breathe, part of me wanting to beg her to care, part of me hating her so much it burned hotter than the iron. Please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The pain blurred my vision, but something inside me didn't break. It hardened, like steel in a forge. I felt scared, betrayed, but also awake, like I'd been sleepwalking my whole life. I stood up, looked at Isabella's smug grin, then Patricia's bored eyes. "I'm out in 5 minutes," I said, voice steady, "but I'm not forgetting. I'm keeping this." Standing there in that damp Columbus basement, my shoulder throbbing like a heartbeat, I looked at Isabella's smirk and Patricia's cold stare. I felt a mix of fury and something heavier, like grief for a family I never had. "I'm out in 5 minutes," I said, my voice quieter than I felt, "but I'm not forgetting. I'm keeping this." Patricia snorted, her Best Mom mug still in hand, like she was annoyed I'd interrupted her evening. "You think that scares us?" she said. Isabella tilted her head, twirling a strand of hair, maybe nervous under her bravado. "No," I whispered, "but even leeches can drain you dry." I left the blouse on the ironing board, but I took something bigger, the truth. I decided then it would be my weapon. I didn't go to the emergency room, too expensive, probably $200 even with my basic insurance, and I didn't want a paper trail Patricia could twist with her church friends on the local council. Instead, I drove to a Walgreens near Interstate 71, paid $12 cash for hydrogel burn bandages, and wrapped my shoulder in my car under a flickering streetlight. The pain stung, but so did the memory of Patricia's words. I couldn't go back to my Chicago apartment yet, still under fumigation, so I headed to my friend Megan's place in Wrigleyville. Her tiny studio, cluttered with thrift store lamps and Cubs posters, felt like a safe harbor. Megan had seen Isabella's cruelty before, back when we'd grab coffee at the diner after my shifts. She was the only one who never doubted me. Megan gasped when she saw the burn, her eyes wide. "Ava, what happened?" she said, pushing aside a pile of laundry. I sat on her sagging couch, feeling both broken and determined, like I was teetering between giving up and fighting. "I need your help," I said, steady now, not to fix this, but to turn it around. Over the next few days, we sat at her chipped kitchen table, piecing together evidence, old texts where Isabella bragged about teaching me a lesson, a voicemail from Patricia laughing, "Ava bruises like a peach, so easy to rattle." We found photos I'd kept hidden, welts, cuts, scars, all time-stamped on my old phone. I knew exposing them wasn't enough. I needed to break their world carefully. Isabella's job at a Cleveland public relations firm was her pride, a $60,000 a year gig she got because Patricia had dirt on the CEO's husband from a school board fight years ago. I had proof of that too, a sloppy email Patricia sent to a church group chat I was once in. So I spent $300 from my savings on a burner phone and a year-long app plan for privacy, setting up a fake client meeting using Megan's address. I wasn't just angry, I was ready. Please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. I felt scared, like I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross, but also alive, like I was finally claiming my own story. Isabella thought her job made her untouchable. Patricia thought her church lady act protected her. They were wrong. I started with Isabella's job, that shiny $60,000 a year gig at a public relations firm in downtown Cleveland, right off Euclid Avenue. The office had glass walls, sleek desks, and a coffee machine that hummed all day. Isabella loved it there, not just for the paycheck, but because it made her feel like she'd escaped our small Columbus world, like she was someone who mattered. I knew she clung to that job to cover up how fragile she felt inside, always needing to be the star. I set up a fake client meeting using the burner phone and Megan's Wrigleyville address. I booked it under a pseudonym, praising Isabella's bold professionalism in my email. It cost me $300 to set up, but every penny felt like an investment in justice. She walked into the meeting, her blonde hair in a tight bun, her heels clicking on the polished floor. I wore a cheap wig and glasses, my heart racing but my hands steady. She didn't recognize me, just flashed her practiced smile. I kept it short, sliding a thick manila folder across the table. "What's this?" she asked, twirling her hair, a nervous tic she'd had since high school. "Your real resume," I said, voice low. She laughed, then opened it. Photos of my bruises, screenshots of her cruel texts, a transcript of her gloating voicemail. Her face froze, her eyes darting like a cornered animal. "Who are you?" she hissed. "The sister you burned," I said softly. "Now it's your turn." She lunged across the table, her nails grazing my sleeve. I pressed record on my phone, hidden in my pocket. Her boss's assistant, sitting at a nearby cafe table as planned, caught it all on video. The next morning, the firm fired her, issuing a vague statement about conduct concerns. Isabella's world, her fancy one-bedroom apartment in Cleveland, $1,200 a month, her designer bags, her whole image, crumbled. I felt a rush of satisfaction, but also a pang of something else, maybe sadness for the sister I'd once wanted to love. Please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. But I wasn't done. Patricia was next, and her fall would hit even harder. With Isabella's world collapsing, I turned to Patricia. She lived for her role on the church committee and the annual Columbus Community Gala, held at the local community center with its polished wood floors and string lights. It was her stage, where she'd wear her pearl earrings and soak up praise for raising such a perfect family. The gala raised about $10,000 each spring for local charities, and Patricia's $2,000 yearly stipend as committee chair was her badge of honor. She needed that event to feel like the pillar of our suburb, to hide the chaos she allowed at home. I bought a $30 ticket, blending into the crowd of khaki-clad neighbors and churchgoers sipping cheap wine. As Patricia stood on stage, delivering her speech about family values and community spirit, I felt a knot in my stomach. Part resolve, part guilt for what I was about to do. I slipped the MC a USB drive labeled as an anonymous tribute to integrity. The screen behind her flickered on. Photos of my bruises, burns, and scars, each time-stamped. Audio played, Isabella mocking me, Patricia's voice calling me a waste of space. The room went quiet, save for a few gasps. Patricia's smile froze, her hands gripping the podium, like she was trying to hold on to her carefully built image. I leaned close as she stepped down, my voice low. Trash earns this, right? Enjoy the spotlight. She hurried out, her heels clicking, leaving her speech notes behind. I felt a surge of justice, but also a flicker of sadness for the mother I'd once hoped she'd be. By morning, the gala's sponsors pulled out, unwilling to be tied to scandal. Donations dried up, and the church board asked Patricia to step down for reflection. Her perfect facade was gone. Please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. After the gala, Isabella tried to spin the story online, posting on social media from her Cleveland apartment, where she paid $1,200 a month for a one-bedroom with a view of Lake Erie. She called me jealous, unstable, a liar, her fingers probably shaking as she typed, desperate to claw back her image. But the evidence, photos, audio, timestamps, was too real. The internet turned on her. Followers dropped, brands cut ties. A high school friend who owned her building evicted her, citing tenant complaints, which I knew was his way of picking my side. Patricia, meanwhile, lost her church roll and her $2,000 stipend. Neighbors in our Columbus suburb whispered at the grocery store, their gossip spreading like wildfire. I felt a quiet thrill, but also a dull ache, like I'd lost something I couldn't name. Then Patricia tried to sue me for defamation, dragging Isabella along. They filed in a Columbus courthouse, a gray brick building with scuffed floors and coffee-stained waiting areas. Their case was flimsy, just emotion, no proof. Because in Ohio, defamation needs a lie that causes real harm, and my evidence was all true. They couldn't afford a lawyer, probably $10,000 for a basic case, and their savings were gone with their reputations. I had $5,000 saved from my data entry job, enough to hire a lawyer who knew Ohio law. I walked into the hearing in a simple black blazer, feeling steady but haunted by old memories of their voices calling me trash. Patricia stood there, her pearl earrings dull, her face tired like she was fighting to prove she was still the perfect mom. Isabella fidgeted, hiding behind sunglasses, maybe ashamed but too proud to show it. "She's ruining our family," Patricia told the judge. I handed over my folder, photos, recordings, hospital bills I'd paid myself. The judge, a stern woman with glasses, dismissed the case fast, calling it a baseless attempt to silence a victim. I felt relief, but also a pang of emptiness, like winning didn't fix the past. Please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The courtroom win felt good, but it wasn't enough. I didn't want to just tear down Isabella and Patricia. I wanted to build something they could never touch. While they scrambled to save face in Columbus, I was in Chicago, working with a small nonprofit I'd volunteered with years ago, helping abuse survivors find housing. Their office was in a converted warehouse in Pilsen, with colorful murals on the walls and mismatched chairs around a meeting table. I launched Scorch Support, a program for people hurt by family, sisters, mothers, the kind of pain hidden behind potlucks and holiday cards. Filing the paperwork cost $500 plus $275 for the IRS form, but a $2,000 grant from an Illinois community fund covered it. I felt proud, but part of me still carried the weight of old scars, wondering if I'd ever fully heal. I went public anonymously in a Chicago news segment, filmed in a cozy studio near the Loop. I said, "It began with an iron, but the real fire was my will to rise." The clip spread online, not because it was loud, but because it was true. Women reached out, Some knew Isabella from her cheerleading days. Others had mothers like Patricia, always putting on a show for the church. I read their emails at my new apartment, a one-bedroom in Uptown for $2,000 a month, funded partly by donations to Scorch Support, about $5,000 to start. I felt strong, but sometimes I'd lie awake, staring at the city lights, feeling the ghost of that iron on my shoulder. Isabella tried a YouTube video, her voice shaky, apologizing but still blaming me. She sat in a dim room, maybe a friend's couch, her confidence gone like she was begging for the life she'd lost. Comments tore her apart. You burned her. She rebuilt. You're the scar now. Patricia applied for her old community center job. They said, no openings. Even her pastor stopped returning her calls. They were both adrift, their identities tied to a reputation that no longer existed. I didn't cheer their fall. I just felt done. One night, Isabella called me. Her voice cracked. I lost everything, she said. I sat on my couch, holding a mug of chamomile tea, feeling both anger and a strange pity. No, I said. You lost us. There's a difference. I hung up, no need for her words. Mentoring a teen through Scorch Support, a girl who chewed her nails raw from a stepfather's cruelty. I saw my younger self. They tried to burn me to nothing, but I didn't just survive. I became fireproof. From their ashes, I built something real, something stronger, me.